Hello, welcome. We're talking about airlines and the airline industry, something that I enjoy to talk about. I've been playing a new game and on my iPad, you're going to hear about it on here. But yeah, I've been having some trouble with British Airways the last couple of weeks. Shall we say, we're cancelling flights, pandemic, so I'm going to talk about it and talk about some of my love of the travel and tourism industry and the transport industry. You're listening to Around the World Today with me, Terry D, and this is Series 5, Episode 1.
Around the world on the internet, this is Real Terrio Radio.
Hello and welcome to Series 5, Episode 1, and I really can't believe I'm saying this. You know, it's Series 5, Episode 1, so 5 years ago I started Series 1, and welcome. We are 12 days delayed in our approximate service. Real Tario apologises for any inconvenience caused to you and your travel today. Who hasn't heard that, right? When you're travelling, so in a train station, we regret to announce that the 2107 Real Tario train service to Upper Clontuch is currently running approximately 14 minutes late. We apologise for any inconvenience caused. Or, your attention please. Passengers flying on Real Tario Airlines flight RA2193 to New York John F. Kennedy. We regret to announce that your flight is currently delayed by approximately 20 minutes. Please continue to listen for announcements. Thank you. Who hates it when your train or your bus or even your aeroplane is delayed? The travel industry also hates it. The staff hate it too. But how many people actually blame the staff? Sometimes it's not actually the staff's fault. Because basically, you know, it could be an operational issue. It could be an issue that's because of a technical problem, meaning it couldn't be safe. But sometimes, when you're travelling, it doesn't always go to plan, does it? The best planned event, and trust me, I do know how to plan a very good holiday. Being a qualified travel agent has its bonuses, shall we say, and one of them is knowing certain tricks of the trade and also knowing how to complain. Being a Terry Davis, you know how to do this. But the fact is, sometimes it goes tits up. Right, your best travel. Look at the last year. People had booked to go in 2020 away. People had booked in 2021. Lockdowns come, and everyone, you know, is blaming the airlines. Quite frankly, the airlines were in the same boat as us. As the country was locking down, the airline didn't have staff. Or certain airlines didn't have staff. They still don't. I spent 4 hours yesterday on the telephone to British Airways. I have had the most abysmal experience ever with British Airways. But we're going to sort it. And here's what it is. As most of you know, we have family in America, if you are friends with me. If you're not, guess what? I have family in America. This time last year, one of my cousins was sadly died. It's the first time in a year that we've been able to travel properly to America with, vaccines and stuff like that. So my mum is going out to see her cousin, his mum. I had booked all of the flights, and as most of you also probably know, and if you don't, I'm going to tell you, my auntie in the UK is ill as well. My mum gets her medication for her, helps her kids out and helps my auntie out. My mum is trying to tie up some loose ends before she went yesterday. She hasn't gone yet, she's going on the 23rd now. And there's a cool thing, because we are going to talk a little bit more about that in a bit. Now, so she's going. So, British Airways cancelled her return flight originally, because it was offering 2 flights on the day. So, they cancelled one leg, and they rebooked her on the other flight. They cancelled then, on the weekend, her inward, so the flight that she had booked. Now, okay, it's great that they rebooked her. The only thing is, they rebooked her on flights that she couldn't get to the airport without staying near the hotel, or my cousins had to leave their house at 6 a.m. in the morning. Now, it was quite inconvenient the other end, both sides. So basically, we had a look at the internet and we booked some flights. We changed the flights because British Airways offer this function. We are quite understanding that basically, pandemic, lack of demand. Like I said, I trained as a travel agent originally. I have a logistics degree, and basically, I do know this industry to a bit, and I do know that if there's no demand, you're not making money, so you're not going to operate a service with any demand. Unless you are completely and utterly crazy and you want your company to lose as much profit as physically and mentally possible. But, anyway. So British Airways did this and they cancelled their flight. So, understandably, we took it. And then when we got some time, we had a look at the flights. Now, on the 23rd of January, on the Sunday, it's my grandmother's birthday. My Nana. Now, Nana's sister, Auntie Pat, lived in America, and it's her daughter my mum's going to visit. For some reason, the afternoon flights that my mum wanted to take were there, so we booked her on them. Now, for me, being a theology student, and as most of you know, someone who's adding up or trying to discern what God has built me, what God has called me to do, I have to say that someone who looks at signs and, maybe those signs are taking you in the wrong direction, or maybe they're taking you in the right direction. 9 times out of 10, the right direction, of course. But could it be a sign that my mum, that this was all needed, that my mum should have went on the 23rd, because originally I was going to book her on the 23rd, but she didn't want to go on a Sunday, she wanted then to go on a Monday. But anyway, she's relented and she's going on the 23rd, because she wants to go earlier. The world is getting crazy, she said. And she just wants to get away. I think she just also wants to see her cousin. It's... And her 2 cousins as well. It's been 2 years. In one instance, it's been 5 years. So, she wants to see them. She misses them. So she's taking the flight. So back to the story of British Airways. So when we did this, because my mum had pre-selected her seats, because you get to sit where you want, aisle and all of that, and you have to pay extra for it. So as you have to pay extra, so she did this. But on the website, because we changed our flights, it was asking us to pay again for the change in the extra bits. The British Airways website doesn't take into account that they cancelled the flights originally, so they've rebooked and offered us this option to, if the rebooking isn't convenient, to change the flight. So that's what we did. But the bit they didn't take into account is any extras booked previous. So I called up, because, we had already paid. I was given abuse by one assistant. No one was compassionate or understanding, but what can you do? Then this lovely assistant, Mazamar, and I think I've said his name right. Oh, lovely guy. He sorted the problem out. It's took him 2 hours to try and bypass the system to book my mum onto these seats. And he did. Today I called up and I wanted to make a complaint. And it's now in their arms, because the way I was talked about before, because 5 hours, 5 or 4 hours, I think it was 4.5 to tell you the truth. More like 5. More like 15 to tell you the truth, even more. But, the assistants I spoke to before were useless. The only way I got to speak to someone in the end is by remembering I'm an executive club member. But anyway, I digress. That's a story of bad travel. However, I've had some good experiences travelling. And isn't it funny that the airline industry is so volatile that one instance like this can, lead to so much problem? Yeah, we're in a pandemic. Yeah, we have staff shortages. Yeah, we have demand shortages. But there's no real excuse for bad customer service anywhere, is there, really? It doesn't take much for those assistants to understand some compassion. The best bit about it, they were trying to use data protection. But both my mum's British Airways account and my British Airways account and our executive account cards are linked together. Go figure. Anyway, we're waiting for British Airways to get back to us. And I hope they do. Now, I was talking with the other Terry the other evening about airlines, funny enough. As you can imagine, it's been the topic of our conversation. As you can imagine, airlines has been the topic of mine and Terry's conversation for quite some time, because we both like airlines. Who would have thought? So we were talking about low-cost airlines flying to America from the UK, and we were researching about Norwegian Air Shuttle, a low-cost airline. And then we were wondering, EasyJet. And I got to looking at some of EasyJet's destinations now, because they've ordered bigger aircraft, the A321. And I don't know if it's a Neo or another version, but anyway, they've bought these aircraft, and they're flying to bigger places. And I'm wondering, would people from the UK fly an EasyJet flight to America? They know the brand, they can trust the brand. The airline itself has a very good European operation. The problem with Norwegian was that it was quite a new startup on its low cost, and its brand was quite new. But everyone in Europe knows EasyJet. Even Americans who fly to the UK know EasyJet or Europe. Could it work? What are your feelings? Could a low-cost transatlantic carrier truly work after the pandemic? Could a company such as Flexbus, who operate here in Europe, buses, and now with Greyhound and Flexbus US, could they theoretically link up with an airline such as EasyJet, another low-cost operator, and offer you a ticket from your destination city, such as Swansea in the United Kingdom, to Swansea in America, with your flight and any extras that you require added in? Could transport with could it be affordable that you could do this in a time of after the pandemic, when the industry itself is trying to come back from being completely broken up? Isn't it now time to start thinking more innovatively and trying to come up with new solutions. In the United Kingdom, one of those new solutions is an open access train network company called Lumo. Now, Lumo is an interesting little company. It's owned by First Group PLC, and basically they are a British open access operator owned by First Group that operates passenger trains on the East Coast Main Line between King's Cross and Edinburgh Waverley. Your next stop is Edinburgh Waverley. Anyway, in 2015, the Office of Rail and Road called for expressions of interest for an open access operations to bid for extra paths on the East Coast Main Line, allowing the new company to run services in addition to its existing franchise operator. In May 2016, first subsidiary, East Coast Trains Limited, was granted a 10-year track access arrangement for 5 services in each direction from May 2021. The launch was confirmed, and in September 2021, alongside the adoption of the Lumo name, which is described by the company as a combination of luminously and motion, they started their service. Isn't that nice? Services commenced on the 25th of October 2021, with 2 trains per day in each direction, 1 on Saturdays, which is due to increase to 5 each way by early 2022. The timetable sees trains depart each terminus at off-peak times. Northbound trains travel non-stop between London and Newcastle. Can you imagine that one? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, your next stop is Newcastle. We're no longer stopping anywhere after this, so if you're getting off, get off ya! Because otherwise your next station stop is London. Can you imagine if you actually got on the train at Newcastle and you thought it was going to Durham, and then you kind of find out that the train is actually, his next stop is London King's Cross. Very great afternoon for you. But anyway, some do call at Morpeth and Stevenage on the way back. Oh, it could be on the way there. I'm confused. Anyway, what if I buy a return ticket from Stevenage on Lumo with their ticket prices, but I can't actually get back to Stevenage because there's no return train? What should I do then? Take East Coast Main Line? There's stuff like that I don't think they've kind of worked out. But they're just placing stops, I feel. But this, it's not new that it's a train, and it's not new that it's a private company that's running a train in the United Kingdom, because this does happen. Quite conveniently, First Group own 2 of them. What is new is the offering on board. A low-cost train company. They're not trying to compete with other train companies. What they're trying to compete with, who they're trying to compete with, is airlines. The only thing is, the thing that they can't compete with an airline is the time it takes to fly there. It'd be quite interesting if they could. It really would. So what's new about Lumo? What makes them different from your other train operators? Now, I can't speak for the service on board because I haven't been on there, but I've watched some reviews and I've read about it. And I'm going to be truthful. I own shares in First Group, so I'm not going to be biased. Sometimes I'm the worst shareholder ever because I criticise my local operating company of First Group quite considerably. Sometimes I feel I put too many demands on them, but there again, sometimes they are incompetent, like most companies. But you can't help it. You can come up with the best plans, but they can fall through and fall apart quite easily. But anyway, Lumo offer a dine on demand kind of service. So you know, we all know about train food. It's very expensive. And sometimes it tastes like cardboard. Like airplane food too. Not all the time, depending on what class you're sitting in, my dears. But, okay, so, onboard service. Should we look at the prices first? Lumo are charging between London and Newcastle £14.90. Between London and Edinburgh, £19.90. If you book in advance, of course. Or Newcastle to Edinburgh, £6.90. I don't know if there is flights between Edinburgh and Newcastle, but if there is, really great value. They also take rail cards by the look of it, seat reservations, and I don't know what it says about other operators, but we will read it. Lumo believe that it should be simple, great value fares. Isn't that great? They're always happy to welcome you on board a Lumo service. As well, if you have other operators' tickets, check before you travel. And don't hold us to account. Now, on board, right, obviously it's going to be a little bit different because of COVID, but they've got something called Lumo Go. Lumo Go is their app where you can get your tickets, you can pre-order your Lumo Eats that we're going to come on to, and you can access movies and box sets just at the touch of your fingertips. So Lumo Eats, it's easy, according to these people. Lumo Eats, right, so this is the bit about the food. Lumo Eats is a brand new at-seat catering solution available exclusively on Lumo services. Well, they've permitted with favourite high street brands to provide a wide selection of food and drink available to pre-order up to 6 hours before your journey via the button below. This is on their website through the Lumo Go app. So you have to download their Lumo Go app to do it. So that, you know, you can order your Marks and Sparks food, your Upper Crest, your pasty shop, you know, all of those things that are conveniently in a train station you can order to your seat. And yeah, it'll take hours to get to Scotland from London, and it only takes about 40 minutes on a plane. But it's a bit cheaper, isn't it, to go by Lumo? If you've got nothing planned and you're going for recreation, it's not the business traveller they're aiming this at. It's you recreational travellers that they're aiming this service at. Because if you need to get from London to Edinburgh in 40 minutes, we all know you're going to fly, right? You're not going to take the train because it's going to take hours. It'll take the best part of a day. And that's just to acclimatise. But there again, the same could be said about flying, and I really haven't helped myself because you've got to go through security. And these days you've got to have proof of this, proof of that, proof... And an app as well. And I don't mean the British Airways app, I mean the other app. But anyway, isn't it time within the transport industry that we got a little bit innovative? It's take it here, and sometimes there's been a mismatch of thinking. In Wales, today it was announced in the transport blog that Wales' government, who said by all accounts said that they would bring in nationalisation of the bus services and franchising, have found out that they couldn't do it. They'd have to change the law. However, they've always known that. They've always known that was the problem. Meanwhile, there's been a pandemic, and it's meant that the operators are now working with government more, because the operators need government to bail them. Isn't it funny that all that has happened on the back of the pandemic? So the Welsh Government are talking less about franchising, but they still want to go ahead and bring out the green paper. The operators are also being promised stuff. So we are getting, by all accounts, a better transport network. However, no, you're not, because some of your night buses are never coming back. Or if they are, they're not coming back for some time, because there is still staff shortages. Back to the airline analogy. Wouldn't a joined up thinking on transport from air, road, rail, bus, bike, walking, all together make perfect sense. One price, one easy price and system to book. The only problem is if your coach runs late, or if your plane runs late and you miss the coach, who pays for the hotel, if it's out of your control. But I'm sure we can come to some arrangement with this. It's called we put them on the next coach 12 hours later and tell them to wait in the reception room. But, you know, there's always ways and swings and roundabouts. Have you seen that program, Airline? I could see me, right? So if you are listening to this from anywhere around the world, in the UK there's a program called Airline with the company that we were talking about, EasyJet, and the customers just go crazy on there. They shout, they scream, they bang. Do you know what I've learnt? We're dealing with British Airways or any airline or any travel company, don't make them angry. Really, anyone, just don't make them angry. When they make you angry, that's, you know, their job-ish. But you need to grin, bear it. Yeah, if they get on your nerves, make a complaint. Use big words. That confuses people. And, yeah, be logical. They hate that. And stick to your point. They hate that too. The fact is, they're only doing their job, and they're only trying their hardest. Yeah, there are some people who are probably having a bad day and shouldn't be on the phones, but you get that in every company. If you call a bank, if you call a train company, if you call your insurance provider these days, or even your mobile phone provider, you get your good stuff, you get your bad stuff. But, you know, for a problem like that, it would have been easy for me to just start shouting. It was British Airways that were making the problem, not myself. We were following the rules. Sometimes we forget that, or the transport industry forgets, that you are seeing a wide range of people, airlines in particular. Sometimes these people are not travelling because they're travelling for a holiday. They're actually travelling for grief, family reunions, and or even happy times, sad times, joyous times. That covers happiness, but you get my gist. Holidays, business. So trying to please every customer, like trying to please every human being, isn't always physically possible. And sometimes, like I said, things do go wrong. And this happens quite a bit in the transport industry, trying to move bricks around and trying to plug up holes. I always thought it was always funny that they taught second year degree students crisis management and then taught a third year module on top. Surely that... and the first year module was crisis team building or crisis management, like, you know, in teams or something, trying to get to know yourself. It was it was project management, sorry, and then it was crisis management and crisis... I can't remember the other one. Crisis management again, it must have been. But yeah, isn't that, like, a bit worrying? See, you could have a simple day. Everything could be going right. Then something, a little pin, just falls out of your equipment, causing catastrophic failure across your network. For hours, sometimes days, sometimes months. Sometimes it could be years, 2 years in particular. And you've got to redraw the board. Again, that's not the people's fault. They're trying to keep the network moving. They're trying to keep you on the go. sometimes our networks are so old that they break because certain routes or certain equipment was created before demand increased, and when you increase your demand, like anything, pressure builds. We can take some examples there from the NHS, can't we? You put demand on the NHS like a tap, and pressure builds. When that pressure builds and overspills, it breaks. Same things happen to transport networks. Same things happen to human beings. The fact that there were more transport employees in the first wave that died from COVID-19. And remember, during the first wave, they were working at first without any protection. Face masks were not mandatory on public transport until the summer of 2020. So, crews of airline cabin crew were flying people home to the UK from countries. There was very little testing. It was all isolation. Crews were flying on flights with PPE, bringing it back to UK on empty planes. So, I think my point is, in summing up, that our transport network may not be the best in the world. It might actually be the worst. And sometimes, to be able to make the network become more efficient, you need to try new things. And that's why I love that Lumo idea. Yeah, it's taking on the airlines. And yeah, Norwegian Air Shuttle tried something different. It's not new. Low-cost air operators flying across the Atlantic. Sir Freddie Laker started Laker Airways in the 70s. Now Laker, I predict, if he was able to get a hold of his markets, and he didn't expand too quickly like he did, and if certain other carriers didn't take to putting him out of business, he would have, I feel, been able to still be going today, even though he's dead. But Laker was a private airline. It was a British airline. It was owned by Sir Freddie Laker. And in 1966, it was originally a charter airline, flying passengers and cargo worldwide. Its head office was located in Gatwick Airport in Crawley, in England. It became the second long-haul, low-cost, no-frills airline in 1977, operating low-floor scheduled services between London Gatwick and New York City's John F. Kennedy. After pioneering Icelandic airline Lufthansa, the company did not survive the recession in the early 80s and operated its last flight on the 5th February 1982, the day it went bankrupt. Laker Airlines. Sir Freddie Laker is an interesting man to the transport industry, and if you do have some time, do take a look at Sir Freddie Laker. He also had subsidiaries: Caribbean Airways, part-owned, Laker Air Travel Limited, Aerosmith Holidays, and Laker Holidays GmbH. And yeah, they had focus city of Glasgow Prestwick. Manchester was the secondary hub. They flew to Berlin. They had a hub at Berlin and a hub at Cardiff. Not Cardiff, Gatwick, sorry. I've got Cardiff on my mind for some reason. Now, what Freddie Laker did in 1966 was buy two former British Overseas Airways Corporation, BOAC, Bristol Britannia 102 series turboprops. Intentionally operated under contract to Air France, these aircraft's livery was a combination of a black and red gold and an adaptation of Laker's racing colours. The Britannias were supplemented and eventually replaced by BAC 111 short-haul jet aircraft from 1967. This included an intent offer for 3 aircraft valued at $4 million. Laker had placed the order directly with the manufacturer in 1966. He provided more than $200,000 of his own money for the newly ordered aircraft. Deposits arranged and the remainder to be borrowed from a consortium of city banks, led by Kleinsley. He placed a follow order for a 4th aircraft to be delivered in 1968 and acquired another relatively new aircraft and was originally delivered to the failed British Eagle airline from the Bahamas Airways in 1971. I'm so confused. These were the mainstay of the fleet for its short and medium-haul chartered operations. As you all know, a charter airline operates different from a normal airline. Like, if they have no demand, they don't have to run the flight. If they have demand, well, otherwise they're going to run the flight. A little bit different today because in COVID you can just cancel flights left, right and centre. Anyway, operations to resorts in the Mediterranean and the Canary Islands for many years. Now, what happened is the introduction of several new short-haul jetliners into the small airlines fleet over a short time necessitated more efficient marketing. Laker came up with a 30% discount offer to encourage tour operators to charter the airline's aircraft during the winter through a time charter. The former helped create a winter traffic to popular Mediterranean resorts, while the latter gave the tour operators financial initiatives to charter an aircraft. Its capacity for an entire season. This ensured that the fleet was fully used throughout the year. Something out of the perks of thought that the charter airlines. It also enabled the airline to sell its 111 capacity 2 years ahead of delivery, therefore helping make Laker the most profitable carrier in its era in Britain. So they opened an overseas base in Germany, and they actually flew there until 1981. So in August 1968, saw the establishment of its first overseas base at Tangal Airport, in which was in West Berlin. The company had up to 3 BAC 111 stationed there until 1981, when these aircraft were replaced with its 3 newly acquired Airbus A300 B4 series wide bodies, at the time the largest aircraft operated out of any Berlin airport. Its Berlin operation was staffed by mainly locals, 90 mainly local workers throughout this period. It carried thousands of holidaymakers from western parts of the then divided German capital to resorts in the Mediterranean and Canary Islands. It had a ground handling business. Laker also found, and they're still going today, Airlines Group with Danair, which owned 51%, and they did Gatwick. Cost savings. Laker pioneered the cost saving to reduce engines and wear and tear. So he was quite thin. He then introduced his DC-10. So then he begins to... He's already, on the fringe here of doing something new. Revitalising the transport industry. Or the air industry. So... he's going to try something new again. He's just done a couple of new things. So, Laker, in the early 70s, saw the airline and its owner battle with aviation authorities in the UK and the USA to approval for a low-cost, no-frills transatlantic service link between London and New York daily during the peak summer period from May to September, and 4 times a week during the remainder of the year. This was to be marketed as SkyTrain for £32.50 one way in winter and £37.50 in the summer. 2 Boeing 707-138Bs were acquired from the administrators of British Eagle in 1969. Both were operated by Qantas when new. They subsequently purchased by Guangzhou Benson, which had leased them to British Eagle until its demise in November 1968. These aircraft were embarked for SkyTrain. Laker's original SkyTrain application assumed 62% break-even load factor. This meant that the airline needed to sell 100 out of its 158 seats at a single fare of £37.50 per seat on each flight to start making money with SkyTrain. Sir Freddie announced SkyTrain at a press conference at the London Savoy Hotel on the 30th of June 1971. Sir Freddie claimed that there were a vast untapped demand for this kind of service and maintained that it would grow and that the total numbers of passengers flying between Britain and the United States each year from 14 million to 16 million rather than the diverting other airlines' existing passengers. Well, you can have a try, of course. So, Sir Freddie Laker, pioneer. SkyTrain didn't take off. The airlines did relent. The former Legacy Airlines didn't like it. But SkyTrain, or Sir Freddie Laker, planted the idea into one Sir Richard Branson, who started Virgin Atlantic, Virgin US America, Virgin Australia, and other numerous airlines, and have tried to go different from the legacy carriers. However, there has been problems in Sir Richard Branson's handling, like there has in all industries. It's called pandemic. Maybe sometimes we do have to try it to think outside the box. Stelios, when he started EasyJet, it was a revolutionary idea for a low-cost airline flying between London and Glasgow. Look at the train operator between Edinburgh and London. But it is very much a weird time, anyway, isn't it, that we find ourselves in. So hopefully with some innovation we can actually get a great offering. Maybe EasyJet can fly to America. Maybe that's their plan. They're starting to fly to Jordan in the Middle East. They're starting to fly to other places. Other low-cost airlines are too. Maybe instead of big, long, wide-body aircrafts, like Norwegian were flying to the States, maybe what they need to do is fly smaller aircrafts to a hub city and link up with another low-cost airline or coach operator in America, or preferably both, whilst allowing those airlines, like Southwest, to do the same here. A US airline, low cost, I believe, JetBlue, have started flying to New York, to London. What's quite great. And I was looking at their business class, and you can have a flat bed! So, yes, maybe changing it up and doing something different could always be great, and to make the transport industry a bit better. But that's my little rant about the transport and my experiences with British Airways. Thank you for tuning in to this episode. Remember to give us a like, to re-listen to this episode and download, and have a great day. Bye bye. So yes, it's a great time. But thank you.